Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed.
Hear me?
And we are back. Welcome to this week's recording of Tales of Music and Film. Thank you for clicking on today's episode, and we are in for a very awesome episode today, folks. So, it has been almost 7 months since I last did a recording here on Tales of Music and Film. I just decided it was time to take a long extended break because late last year, around New Year's Eve, I hit 100 episodes, and life was really starting to get pretty busy, so I figured it was time to take a break. But today, I had off from work, and I was really bored, and I was thinking, you know what, it's time to bring the show back out again, because I really miss doing it. I miss doing these recordings. I think they are a lot of fun. So, we're going to be starting off Season 11. And with this recording, I want to talk about something I experienced back on May 24th of 2025, and for any of you who've been listening to the show for a long time, I'm not going to be surprised about today's topic. We are going to be talking about AC/DC. Now, I have covered a few of their albums on the show in the past. You can feel free to go check those episodes out if you want to. I've covered the Back in Black album, I covered Power Up, and I covered Fly on the Wall. And now I'm going to be talking about the concert that I waited 9 years to see. So in previous recordings, I have talked about how I saw AC/DC. They were my very first concert when I was 16 years old. My parents took me to go see them on February 20th, 2016 in St. Louis. And this show single-handedly changed my life. Now, before this show, I was slowly starting to get into rock and roll music. My favorite band at the time was CCR, and I was just starting to get into AC/DC. At the time, the only songs I knew by them were, Back in Black, Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill, Highway to Hell. That was really about it. And the reason I knew about those songs is because, how many movies, have these songs been featured in? Like, especially, I heard all these songs in the Supernatural TV show. They really loved using AC/DC songs. But those are the only 4 tracks I really knew about going into this show. And 2 hours later, after seeing that, I was a changed person, okay? After that show, I went home and I researched this band like crazy. I wanted to know everything. I watched their early 2000s Behind the Music episode about them. I watched many documentaries, and I learned their entire story, and it was just so intriguing. And I bought everything that they've done. I have a massive CD collection and vinyl collection, and AC/DC is only like one of a few bands where I have everything they've done. Every album they've done have all been amazing in their own way. Like, this band has never, in my opinion, written one bad song in their whole 50-year career. And after I saw them, I wanted to see them again so badly. And every day I would get on Google and see any news of, were they going to tour again or not. And it was a long 9-year journey. So after I saw them, in 2016, 2 years later, we had our first glimpse that something was happening. Now, you gotta keep in mind, guys, this show was a miracle because I really did believe that the band was finished. Because just to set the scene for you, when I saw them, it was their Rock or Bust tour. Rock or Bust was their album they released in 2014, which surprisingly got a lot of negative feedback, it seems like. I don't know why. When I go on, there's an AC/DC fan page that I follow, and on Facebook, and I noticed that a lot of people seem to have a lot of negative feelings about the Rock or Bust album, saying that it's very disappointing. Sure, it was nowhere near as good as Black Ice. That album was amazing. If we're talking about the 4 albums that they've released in the 20th century, I would say Black Ice might be their best one. Rock or Bust, in my opinion, was not disappointing in any kind of way. I thought it was a great album. But anyway, that was the album that they were touring on, and the lineup for this tour, so for Rock or Bust, so when they recorded the album, it was the first album not to feature Malcolm Young on rhythm guitar because sadly he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and there were warning signs back at the Black Ice tour that something wasn't right. Apparently, around 2010 when they were touring Black Ice, Malcolm and the band had to do additional practice sessions before the show started because Malcolm was starting to forget these songs that he's played a million times. So that was kind of the first early signs that there was something wrong, and then he only got worse from there, unfortunately. Then when it was time to record the Rock or Bust album, he had to retire from the band, and then they had to bring in their nephew Stevie Young to fill in for him, and Stevie is still with them today, kicking absolute butt. He is doing an amazing job filling in for Malcolm. And then sadly, Malcolm passed away in, I think it was in November of 2017, something like that. That was really sad. I still remember the day that he passed away. Me and my best friend went to the theater to go see, I think it was the Justice League movie. And I remember coming home, and my best friend's dad told me that Malcolm had passed away, and I was just completely shocked. And when I saw them the first time in St. Louis, the lineup was Brian Johnson on vocals, you had Angus Young on lead guitar, Stevie Young on rhythm guitar, Chris Slade on the drums, and Cliff Williams on the bass. And another member that left before this tour was Phil Rudd. He was there for the recording of the Rock or Bust album, but shortly after, he got into very bad legal trouble because he took way too many drugs, and he tried doing this solo album called Head Job, and it sold very, very badly. And he got drugged up one day, and it seems that he was making threats that he was going to hire a hitman to kill somebody who helped make the album. And as you can imagine, that got him in serious trouble, and he had to go through the court system. I can't remember what he got, or if he won or not. I doubt it, but still, he got in some serious legal trouble, so therefore, Chris Slade had to fill in for him on that tour. So that was why Malcolm and Phil were not there on this tour. And then the Rock or Bust tour was going. Everything was going very, very well. If you look up any videos from that tour, they were doing an amazing job. When I saw them in St. Louis, they brought the house down. I remember thinking, these guys literally came out and showed you what can be done with a live show. AC/DC, in my opinion, they are the peak of a live performance. You'll never see anything like them again. But I remember looking back at the show, I noticed something that I didn't really think about till later. But Brian Johnson, right, lead singer, after one or two songs, he kept running back behind stage for a little bit and then would come back out again. And I'm like, why is he doing that? Now we know he was constantly having to go back to have his hearing aid readjusted because he was suffering from hearing loss. Because you gotta remember, he's been playing these loud shows for 35 years at that point, and it was starting to catch up with him. Apparently, Brian even said that his hearing had gotten so bad by this point that he had to go off of muscle memory to know where they were in a song, and that's just absolutely crazy to me. During my whole show, never once did I think that he was struggling with his hearing. I mean, his vocal performance was second to none. But anyway, there were signs that his hearing was starting to get really bad. And apparently, just 2 shows after mine, when they were in Austin, Texas, the doctor told him that if he continues this tour, he's going to be putting himself at risk of permanent hearing loss. So Brian had to make a very tough decision to quit the tour, and they still had, I believe, 10 dates left. And they had to reschedule those while figuring out what to do. And then the Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose stepped in for Brian to finish the tour. And then, once the Rock or Bust tour ended, Cliff Williams, the bass player, who's been with this band since 1978, announced that he was retiring. So, this tour ended, right? Brian, Malcolm, Phil, and Cliff were all gone, with Angus and Stevie and Chris left. And everybody thought that that was it. I mean, you had Phil's legal problems, and Cliff retiring, Brian's hearing problems. I mean, it just felt like that the band was finished, that we were never going to see them play live ever again. But then in 2018, a year after Malcolm's funeral, things started to get, very hype, to say the least. They had pictures emerged from their recording studio in Canada of Brian and Phil and Angus and Stevie, outside the recording studio, or they were having like smoke breaks and stuff, and people started speculating, like, are they recording something? And then not long after, I think it was like in 2019 or 2020, trailers started being released that they were getting ready to release a new album. And then in 2020, a day after Van Halen passed away, the Shot in the Dark, one of their new songs off Power Up, was released. And guys, I'm not kidding you, I stayed up until midnight. I literally counted down the clock. It was like 10, 9, 8, and then the song played. Dude, to say that I was hyped up was an understatement. I remember I literally took a video of myself reacting to this song, and I was just blown away. I couldn't believe it. I got to witness the release of a new song, and then later that year the full album came out. I ordered it off Amazon. The Power Up album, I highly recommend you guys go listen to my review of the Power Up album. But this album was insane. It literally felt like it was Back in Black 2.0, where this whole album was done in the memory of Malcolm. How Back in Black was in memory of Bon Scott, the original frontman. This album release was one of the highlights of my life. I can't express how cool it was to be able to witness the release of a brand new album. Just wow. And then, after the album came out, I'm thinking, okay, they have to tour, right? Please tell me they're going to tour. But, COVID was at its all-time high in 2020, and it still felt like they weren't going to tour, anytime soon. But then, luckily, 3 years later, at the Power Trip Festival, the guys came back to play live for the first time in 7 years at that point. And it was Brian, Angus, Stevie, and Cliff Williams came out of retirement, and they had a new drummer. Matt Lang was his name. And I was really sad that Phil wasn't back, but I guess I heard somewhere, due to his legal problems, that he can't tour the United States anymore. I don't know if that's 100% factual or not, but that's what I heard. And their entire 2-hour show at Power Trip was absolutely insane. I literally watched it live on YouTube, and this show single-handedly, took any doubt away from me on whether or not they still had it. And this show was a miracle. Brian got brand new hearing aids. He was able to overcome his hearing loss. Now he can play live again. Angus and Stevie were back. Cliff came back just for the Power Trip Festival. Just to see them back on the stage again was just an absolute dream come true. And then they announced the tour dates for the European tour of the Power Up album, and they announced their new bass player who was going to fill in for Cliff for the tour. His name is, I believe, Chris Chaney, I think is how you pronounce it. So for the Power Up tour, you had Brian, Angus, Stevie, Matt Lang, and Chris Chaney. Now, a lot of people were complaining and saying that this lineup was no longer AC/DC, but the way I looked at it was, okay, you have Brian, Angus, and Stevie still there, and Matt Lang was doing an amazing job drumming. He had Phil's style down perfectly, in my opinion, and Chris Chaney was doing an amazing job filling in for Cliff, so the lineup, it was just fine with me. And then, on May 24th, 2025, I got to see them in Chicago at Soldier Field. It was the final date for the North American leg of the Power Up Tour. It was just so crazy to me. Like, I remember it was back in February of this year was when the North American tour tickets went on sale. I was working my job. I'm a substitute teacher, and I was working my job one day, and Mom told me she was in the process of getting tickets, and she finally got them, and I was literally screaming in the inside. I couldn't believe it. And then now, all these months later, my parents and I, we drove up to Chicago, stayed at a hotel for a few days, then we drove out to Soldier Field, and the anticipation was absolutely insane. I originally went to that show in my Brian Johnson cosplay that I put together. It was my Van shoes, pair of jeans with a AC/DC shirt with the sleeves cut off, with a sleeveless jean jacket, with my Brian Johnson Newsboy cap. I was trying to go for the Flick of the Switch album tour look that he had going. But unfortunately, it was extremely cold that day. Like, it was absolutely insane. Me and my parents and I, we were like, why is it so cold? I mean, it was May 24th. I mean, we were pretty close to, as far as I'm concerned, summer has already started, even though officially it didn't start till, mid-June or something. But it literally felt like we had gone back in time 6 months. It felt like it was, January or December. And Soldier Field, it's right next to Lake Michigan. So for some reason, the water that day, really, for some reason, it helped bring the air temperature way down. So my costume idea was thrown out the window. I was freezing to death, and I couldn't wear my Van shoes because I'm flat-footed, and the parking lot that we found to park our vehicle was quite a distance, so it wasn't too far away, but we had to walk a good, I would say, 3 miles or something to make it to Soldier Field. And, so me wearing my Van shoes was out of the question. Thankfully, I had brought my long sleeve jean jacket with me, and I wore that instead, and I wore my good brown shoes. It didn't bother me, that much. I kept the Newsboy cap. The look still, it was pretty good, so that didn't bother me that much. But man, the other part that sucked about this show at Soldier Field was that we were stationed really high up. So imagine you're facing the stage, right? Me and my parents, we were placed way up high on the left-hand side of the stadium, so you're really high up. So as you can imagine, it got more cold the higher we went up, and we were miserable, to say the least. My parents were freezing. My poor mom was suffering, to say the least. And my dad, it literally got so cold, he literally went to one of the souvenir shops nearby, and he bought himself one of the AC/DC hoodies. We were not prepared. We were shocked with how cold it was, that day. I'm sure all you fellow fans that will listen to this or at that show can say, yeah, it was freezing cold. But I didn't let it get to me. I pushed it aside, I was freezing, but I didn't let it get to me. And before we went into the stadium, there were souvenir shops outside the stadium, and we got there extremely early, so we had an hour or two to kill before the show even started, and I decided to go look at the shops, and I bought me some cool souvenirs, because, hey, I can't leave empty-handed, right? I ended up buying me one of their tour posters that were unique to that tour. Apparently some artist was making it. I bought me an AC/DC tie, I bought me one of the light up devil horns, and I bought me an AC/DC shirt. And that cost me around $100, I think it was $120 or something for all those items. But you know what? I didn't care. It was cool because I didn't buy me any merch when I saw them the first time in St. Louis, and I regretted that heavily, and I knew I was not going to make the same mistake again. So yeah, I bought me some souvenirs. It was finally time to head inside. We all got ourselves some food. I bought me a burger meal, and then a little later on, I got me a pretzel too, and I got my mom and me a few drinks. We went up to our seats, and we just sat there and tried to keep warm, the best we could. But the cold couldn't have bothered me in the slightest because I was just so excited for this, it's just crazy to think, you wait 9 years, and then it's like, oh my gosh, it's finally happening. It was just so surreal. The opening act came out on stage to begin the show, and it was a band called The Pretty Reckless, and they've been around for a little bit now, and I had never heard of them before until this tour. They were the opening act for this tour for the European leg, the North American leg, and they just started the next leg of the tour right now, and they're opening as well. So the Pretty Reckless have been around since about, it looks like, since 2008. So they've been around for 17 years, and the thing that's absolutely hilarious to me is that the lead singer for this band is a lady named Taylor Momsen, and she used to be an actress back in the early 2000s, and the thing that blew my mind was that she played Sidney Lou in the Jim Carrey live-action How the Grinch Stole Christmas from 2000. I was just absolutely flabbergasted that she was that little girl from the Grinch movie, and now she's a gothic lead singer. I just thought that was just hilarious, as she went from this sweet little Sidney Lou to being a rock and roll singer, screaming her lungs out, wearing goth clothing and stuff. It's like, wow, that's the same person? I was just completely shocked by that. But I gotta be honest, man, overall, I thought Pretty Reckless did a really good job. Although me and my parents were all in agreement that they weren't quite loud enough. I don't know if it was just because of the amps they were using. It just felt like they weren't quite loud enough. We were struggling to hear the vocals the whole show. I mean, they all sounded similar just because we couldn't hear them very well. I guess they weren't turned up high enough. They ended up playing for about, I would say, an hour and a half or something, but they were a really good opening act. I enjoyed them. I really did. It was great. And then the big show began. Guys, I'm not kidding when I say the minute the intro video started for this show, for the next 2 hours, my brain was on autopilot. The excitement took over me, and I was possessed, okay? Like, here I am, after 9 years, I'm standing in a sold-out stadium, getting ready to see my favorite band of all time play live, probably for the last time. And I'm not kidding you guys, I did not leave to use the bathroom. Like, about an hour in, I had to use the bathroom really badly. I held it for the other hour. I'm like, I am not missing any of this. I don't care how much pain I'm in, I'm not missing this, okay? I toughed it out, and I'm glad I did. I'm freezing. I was freezing. My muscles were starting to hurt, but I did not give a crap. I was getting ready to witness the greatest band ever again. And the minute that intro video started, oh my gosh, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And then the opening riffs for If You Want Blood started. Then I see Angus run out on stage wearing a red schoolboy uniform, the same look he had when I saw them the first time. And then Brian came running out, yelling out the opening vocals and all that, and I was the happiest man on the planet for those 2 hours. And I was literally getting headaches because I had never screamed so loud in my life. I just could not believe that this was happening. The thoughts running through my mind were, someone pinch me. Is this really happening? Am I dreaming right now? And my gosh, man, I didn't think it was possible for them to top themselves, but my God, they sure did. Brian's vocal performance in this blew the last time I saw him out of the water. I just, guys, you need to keep in mind, okay? This man is 77 years old. Angus was 70. And Stevie was, I think, 69, almost 70, something like that. Like, these guys are all in their 70s, and they brought the freaking house down. Angus ran back and forth on that stage the whole 2 hours. He really went all out on this one. Like, these guys did way better at this one than the last time. And that was no small hill to climb. I mean, I didn't think it was possible to top themselves, but they did. Brian sang so much better at this show, probably because he could hear himself again. The sound was just so amazing. The engineering team they got it. Opening with If You Want Blood, they could not have picked a better song. So I think it was really cool. So for this tour, they seem to have brought back some Bon Scott era songs. And I think the reason for this was because, so back when Brian had to quit touring during the Rock or Bust tour, when Axl stepped in, this opened the opportunity for the band to break out some old Bon Scott era songs they weren't really doing anymore. Like I noticed when Axl joined, the final 10 tour dates, they did songs like If You Want Blood, Riff Raff, Problem Child, stuff like that. And I think they noticed that the fans were really missing those songs, especially If You Want Blood. I mean, this song, in my opinion, is extremely underrated. I mean, it was the Shoot to Thrill song for Highway to Hell. I mean, whenever that song turns on, let's just say I can't drive the speed limit, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that song means a lot to people, and I think they realized that. So for this tour, they decided to have that be their opening song, and they could not have picked a better opening. It was so hype. I remember when Angus ran out, he started doing the duck walk, all the lights on the stage went red, Brian was singing the vocals for it and all that, and it was the happiest time in the world for me. And I remember, once that first song finished, I remember Brian running out saying, "Hello, Chicago, it's been too long, how you doing?" It was just, the entire stadium was just yelling, like, we were witnessing the greatest band on planet Earth again. And man, it was just, what a time to be alive. And the set list for this show was absolutely amazing. And I think the set list for this show, may have been better than the last time I saw them. So the set list so they pretty much, so with a lot of bands when they tour, some of them like to change the set list like every show they do. But it seems with AC/DC, for this tour, they kept the set list pretty much the same every show. They didn't really change anything. They ended up doing 21 songs at my show. They actually did one song more than when I saw them the first time. When I saw them in St. Louis the first time, they did 20 songs. This time they did 21. And so the set list for my show was If You Want Blood, Back in Black, Demon Fire, Shot Down in Flames, Thunderstruck, Have a Drink on Me, Hell's Bells, Shot in the Dark, Stiff Upper Lip, Highway to Hell, Shoot to Thrill, Sin City, Rock and Roll Train, Dirty Deeds, High Voltage, Riff Raff, You Shook Me All Night Long, Whole Lotta Rosie, Let There Be Rock, TNT, and For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. And guys, I gotta be honest, I think the highlight for me of this set list was when they did Stiff Upper Lip. I mean, guys, I love the Stiff Upper Lip album. I think it got too much hate, to tell you the truth. It's extremely underrated. It was the first album they did to be released in the 21st century. It came out in 2000, and this album is great. Stiff Upper Lip is an amazing song, and I could not believe that they dug that out of the archive for this tour. I genuinely want to know, it's like, why did they decide to pick that one, They hadn't played that song for 20 years, over 20 years at this point. So I was really shocked they brought this one back out. But I could tell that Brian was really happy that they brought this one back. Like, if you look up any footage of him singing this during this tour, he loves this song. It's so bluesy, Stiff Upper Lip is one of my favorite AC/DC songs. I literally listened to it the other day when I made a quick trip up to a town nearby to go fill out some paperwork for a job. Stiff Upper Lip it's a great album and a great song too. When they did that song, like, me and my dad, like, we lost our minds. They're like, Dad's like, son, they're playing your song. I'm like, oh my God, you know, just, oh, it's amazing. But I will say, the one thing I was kind of disappointed about was that I really wish they'd played just a few more songs off the Power Up album. Like, Shot in the Dark and Demon Fire were very good choices, but I was really hoping that they would do Realize and Witch's Spell. I was really hoping that they would add those to the set list. I mean, Witch's Spell is one of my favorite songs off Power Up. I was really sad that they didn't add that to the set list, you know. I just wish they could have added just one or two more songs off Power Up, but nonetheless, the set list was still amazing. And another highlight for me was that they played my favorite song, which is Rock and Roll Train. That is my all-time favorite AC/DC song. And another thing about this show that was really amazing to me was that Brian was wearing his Black Ice Tour outfit, his sleeveless Harley Davidson shirt. I mean, one of my biggest regrets in my life, if someone were to ask me, you know, it's like, what's like one regret you have, is that I wish that I had gotten into rock and roll music earlier in life. I really didn't start getting into rock music till I was, you know, 14, 15 years old, you know, but I just wish that I'd gotten into music just a little earlier in life. When AC/DC was touring on Black Ice, I would have been 10 years old, you know, and I just wish I could have gotten to see them on the Black Ice tour, you know. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about how amazing the Black Ice show would have been, you know. I think about that all the time, but, you know, I got to see them, you know, on Rock or Bust and Power Up, so it's okay. I just wish I could have gotten to see them with Phil and Malcolm, but still, it's okay. It just wasn't meant to be. You know, back then when I was 10 years old, I mean, I had no idea who the band was yet, you know, and I had very bad sensitive hearing issues, so if my parents had taken me to see them, I would have had no idea what was going on, and I probably would have been covering my ears the entire time, because back then I was really sensitive to loud noises. You know, it just wasn't meant to be, but it was really special to me that Brian was wearing his Black Ice outfit, you know? So, I mean, that was cool. So, it was kind of like, I don't know, it was kind of like this second chance kind of feeling, you know? I got, like, it was just so cool to see him wearing the Black Ice outfit. The set list was just, wow, just, they did all the good ones. It was literally like a greatest hits kind of thing. But, man, Shot in the Dark and Demon Fire, dude, if you thought those songs weren't, you know, electrifying enough, hearing them live was just a whole nother thing. Like, when they did Demon Fire, man, was that amazing. Like, I daydreamed a lot about what would this song look like playing live, and to actually see it in person, holy cow, was it amazing. And then when they did, you know, Shot in the Dark, wow, man, just, I remember the entire stage, the lights all went red, and then they had the album logo for AC/DC pop up on the screen, and then it was just, wow, man. I mean, I love Power Up. It might be, if I had to do a top 3 favorite AC/DC albums, I think my top 3 would be Black Ice, Power Up, and Back in Black. Power Up was just, dude, there was something about that one, you know, just the energy on that album, the songs, I mean, it really felt like it was Back in Black 2.0. It just, that one, there was just something so special about it, you know? I can't quite put my finger on it. The one thing I will say, I was just sad with how fast it went. I mean, that's another thing about this. The whole 2 hours, there really wasn't any breaks, really. It was just song after song after song, you know? There may have been a few slight pauses, but they played that whole show all the way through. There weren't like any like extremely like long breaks really or anything, not that I remember. And it was just song after song. Like, I was singing along to every song they did, and I was starting to worry I might have been annoyed. I look back on the show and I'm worried. I hope I didn't annoy all the people around me, you know. It's just like, I was just so happy, you know. And I will definitely say another highlight for me was getting to see Angus do his like 20-minute solo section near the end of the show, and it was just, wow, man. I mean, it's just that guy, it makes you wonder. I mean, it's like, what does he do to take care of himself? I mean, he smokes occasionally, drinks tea, but this guy's never done drugs once in his life. Not that I know of, anyway. I just could not believe, like, a 70-year-old man still doing the duck walk, doing a solo, running up on this device that he walked out on the stage, lifted him up in the air, and he fell on the ground and did his circle thing. He did the same thing the first time I saw them, and I was thinking, like, surely he can't do that now, but he still did it. It was just, wow. This guy just shows you, when it comes to, like, live performances, age is just a number, I mean, with the way Brian Angus and Stevie, with the energy they brought to this show, you would have thought they were like 30-something still. I just could not believe it, Like, their bodies were in rough shape, but the spirit, key thing here, the spirit was still there, And just every song, the show just kept going and going and going. I didn't want it to stop, Like I said, I was just so sad with how fast. And you wait 9 years, then boom, you saw it, it's over, But I'll never forget seeing Angus do that solo, just running back and forth, running up the stairs, doing his classic thing where he puts his hand next to his ear, and the crowd was just going wild for him, It was just, wow. We were witnessing probably one of the greatest guitarists of all time. It was just, wow. What a time to be alive, And another, I'll tell you what, though. Something happened during that show. It literally made the hairs on my arm stand up. I'll never forget this. It was when they got about halfway through the show, they did Highway to Hell. Usually they do that song like near the end. But for some reason during this tour, they decided to move it up to about the halfway point. And when they did Highway to Hell, the entire stadium was singing along, screaming Highway to Hell. It was just so crazy. You look around, you see the thousands and thousands of people wearing the light-up horns, and we were all singing the song with them, And it was just, wow. I just remember thinking, like, dude, this is insane. I literally got to see firsthand, live music bring people together, It was just, wow. That moment's never going to leave me, There was just something about that, It was just, wow. It was just a very surreal thing. And another feeling that I was having at this time, like, have any of you fellow listeners ever had this feeling where it's just like you just wanted to stop time for a second, This whole show, it was just like, if only I could click the freeze button for a second and really, like, every song they did, I just tried so hard to enjoy it as much as I possibly could, because I'm never gonna see them again, I just, man, just that moment in time, you just wish you could pause it for just a second and just really take in your surroundings, like, I'm never going to experience anything like that show ever again. I mean, that's the other thing about this show, it's just like, no band I see live from this point is ever going to get to the level these guys did. AC/DC, this show, they single-handedly set the bar on what can be achieved with a live show. I'm never going to see anything like this again. Nothing's topping this. And it's just, I just want to thank the universe above, that I was given this amazing opportunity, to see these guys again. It was just so funny. Every day, I would just look up in the sky and just be like, please let me see them one more time, please. And I got it, And I have to take a moment to also give a huge thank you to my parents. Without them, this would never have happened. My mom bought the tickets. My dad drove us to Chicago, got us there back, safe and sound. They did everything, to make this show happen for me. And I can never say thank you enough to both of them. My parents are my heroes, and they have done so much for me. I can never say thank you enough. And we had so much fun. Like, the best part for me was going to see this show with them. Like, we, all three of us, had huge smiles on our faces the whole time. My dad and I bonded so much during this show. The highlight for my dad was when they did, Shoot the Thrill. Shoot the Thrill is my dad's favorite AC/DC song, and he thinks the best live version of it was when they did it at the Donington show in 1991 on the Razor's Edge tour when Chris Slade was the drummer. He thinks that was the best live version of the song, and he might be right. But anyway, Shoot the Thrill was definitely the highlight for him. He lost his mind when they did that. And he was also very surprised that they did, he was really happy they did Riff Rap, in Sin City. He really likes the Power Rage album. Another moment he really enjoyed was his favorite song off of the Back in Black album is Have a Drink on Me. And him and I, we were losing it when they did that one. That was awesome. I just want to say that I hope you guys had just as much fun as this show as I did. I hope all you listening in, I hope many of you got to see them on this tour, And I wish I could talk to some of you and just ask you, what was your take, on this tour and your shows? Did you enjoy them? Did you have as much fun as I did? Did they play all the songs you wanted to hear, I love being a part of the AC/DC fan community. I love it. I've been a part of the AC/DC fan base community since about, I would say, 2017, 2018 when I first started joining, the fan pages on Facebook, And I've gotten nothing but love from, all you fellow fans. It's just a beautiful thing, isn't it? When music brings people together. It's amazing. I just love being a part of the AC/DC fan base. And that's really about all I can say, guys. I wanted to just recap for you all my amazing memories from seeing my favorite band again after waiting 9 whole years, I'll never forget the car ride home and just thinking, wow, what an amazing trip that was. Just these memories I got to share with my parents, I will never forget for the rest of my life, And I hope you all made amazing memories at your shows as well. This show single-handedly reminded me that rock and roll is never going to die, ever. AC/DC single-handedly got me into rock and roll music. They single-handedly changed my life. AC/DC helped me realize that rock and roll is my stress toy, and whenever I'm down, I'll just put on one of my rock and roll records, and I'll be in a very good place. So that is my recap of seeing AC/DC again for the second time. I hope you all really enjoyed this recording, and it feels really good to be back. I'm very excited. Now, I have no clue how this is going to go going forward. I am very busy with my jobs. I guess just doing this, I'm going to try to see if I can do an episode maybe once every couple of weeks. It just depends. But nonetheless, I am very happy to be back. And I have a long list of films and albums and other topics that I can't wait to share with you. So until next time, my name is Christian Taylor, and you are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.